Maggie,
Yeah.
can you come in? Okay, I'm trying to do it, but I'm not seeing it on YouTube.
Is it live already?
I just did it.
Oh.
Bad.
Oh, things are slow. So we'll go to I don't know how to tell me. Click that. Go to your videos. And then live.
Oh.
And then scroll down. Yeah. Okay, and then hover, see the little three dots standing on each other. Click that. Oh, first actually, go to visibility, make it public.
Oh, have I done this before? I don't remember.
I don't know if you've done this part before.
I haven't.
And then the three dots. And then get shareable link. And then it should automatically copy.
Okay, great. So I can send this. Okay, I'm sending it right now.
Perfect.
Is that okay?
Yup.
Now, how do I turn off the volume on it over here? I'm in the wrong place, I know.
That, like turn off that you're talking. Right now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mission Week 2021. It's Mrs. Studerman. In just a moment, we will get into our 14th annual Mission Week kickoff. But first, let's take a moment right now to remind ourselves that we are always in the presence of God. Dear God, bless us today in all that we experience. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mission Week 2021. It's Mrs. Studerman. In just a moment, we will get into our 14th annual Mission Week kickoff. But first, let's take a moment right now to remind ourselves that we are always in the presence of God. Dear God, bless us today in all that we experience. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Okay, that was fun. So here we are. And we were praying, so God, you know what's in our hearts, not in my technology. All right, if we've learned nothing else this past year, it's that life can throw us some curveballs. It's a brave new world we live in, and it takes courage to be women and men of faith, compassion, integrity, and excellence. I am so excited today because we have with us a wonderful guest who has that very kind of courage. Victoria Russell recently started a new position as Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer with Beam Suntory after 14 years with Papa John's International. She made a name for herself there when she stepped up during difficult times to be the first to lead their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. In 2019, she was named a Woman Making a Difference by Louisville Business First and selected as one of Louisville's 40 under 40. She's also been featured in Business Journal's national list of influential young executives. And among many other distinctions, she's been honored as a Daughter of Greatness by the Muhammad Ali Center and featured as a 2020 Most Admired Woman in the corporate category in today's Women's Magazine. She joins us virtually today to chat about courage and character along with two of our students, Lily Roberts and Aaron Troutman. Ms. Russell, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Well, we have two wonderful students who are here with us, and I'm going to turn it over to them because they have some questions for you.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm freshman Lily Roberts, and so our theme for Mission Week is Brave New World, and this past year has certainly been one that calls for bravery. What do you think it takes to be a woman of courage in today's world, and how have you done so in your life?
Well, thank you, Lily. I would say to be a woman of courage and bravery for me is really knowing who I am and understanding, the legacy I carry on for my family. So I lost my mom to stage 4 ovarian cancer a couple of years ago. And at that moment, it really reminded me, like, who do I want to be? How do I want to be remembered? At her funeral, no one talked about the car she drove or the house she lived in, things like that. They talked about the impact she made on their lives. And she was a school teacher, so she impacted the lives of so many students. And for me to get that lesson fairly young at 37, I really wanted to focus on what kind of impact do I want to make? And that's something I've tried to live my life accordingly and think about, whether it's in my career, my personal life, with friends, with family, am I doing something that makes someone else's life better? And so, something I always tell myself at the end of the day, I'm not working toward the next job or anything like that, but rather trying to get into heaven, right? Like that's the ultimate destination for me. And so am I doing things in my life that ladder up to that? And would I make my mom proud?
Thank you. I'm sophomore Aaron Troutman, and one of the questions that I have is, what are some of the most important life lessons that you have learned that serve you well in living courageously today?
It kind of ladders back to that with my mom and what kind of legacy I want to leave and making a difference in someone's life, right? So what does that mean? Being a voice for the voiceless, standing up for others. I think back to my high school days, and I had my identical twin sister with me. We were both at Ballard High School. And we always would see like students that would get picked on, and that would not set well with us, right? And so my sister and I, and maybe this is not the best way to go about it, were sometimes known as the bully of bullies, right? And so when we would see kind of that defenseless person picked on or criticized, my sister and I would step in and defend them. And so that's something I think that's just always been in my nature, and as well as my twin sister. How do you step up for someone else and be courageous, right? And at the end of the day, you would want someone to do that for you. And so I think that's something, again, that's just kind of carried on throughout my life. And I hope to continue to do so and set an example for others.
Thank you. Okay, so you work a lot with diversity and inclusion. The majority of the students at Assumption are white. What can white people do to make our school, our homes, and the larger community of Louisville more inclusive and accepting for people of color?
Absolutely. I think what I'm about to share actually applies to everyone, but it's continuing to learn more about one another. I think so often, bias kind of creeps in as a result of how we were brought up, where we lived, right? Who our friends and family is in our life. And so I think it's important to have empathy and try to understand, the experiences of someone else. So whether that's getting to know them, asking them questions, right? Be curious about one another, check your biases, right? So if you have a certain kind of feeling towards someone, ask yourself why, and what is that based in? Is it based in anything factual, right? Or is it something maybe you saw on TV or something you read about, right? Versus talking to someone. I would look around your circles of friends and family and really your friends, but is it diverse, right? Who around you doesn't look like you? Who around you doesn't have the same experiences as you? Do they go to a different school? Do they live in a different part of town? And I think doing that and making sure, does everyone look like me and think like me that's around me? Maybe I should, seek out others and different opinions. And I think one thing I'd always share is, acknowledgement does not equal agreement. So as you continue to understand people around you, their experiences, you don't always have to agree, and that's okay. But seeing them, recognizing them, acknowledging them, I think is really important. And that's something we can all do. And then also to give each other grace, right? We're so quick to judge these days and react quickly and social media and things like that, but to extend a little grace to one another and continue to explore. And as I said, be curious about, your friends. And I think that's definitely a first step. And then the last piece I would say is education, right? Are you reading any books that would help kind of open your eyes? There's podcasts, there's TV shows, documentaries, all kinds of things you can do to continue to take those steps on your own educational journey. So whether it's, White Fragility, which is a great book for people to pick up. And I think even more so understanding anti-racism, going a step beyond, hey, I'm not racist, but rather am I actively anti-racist, right? Do I oppose this? And do I demonstrate that in my daily life? But I think those are some of the ways that, you can help be an ally to others.
Thank you. Another question is, I understand that you worked at Papa John's during a controversial time for the company. Can you tell us about that and why you chose to stay there during that time?
Absolutely. So give a little context. I actually worked at the company almost 12 years in a marketing role. Love what I did, right? Born and raised in Louisville, worked at mostly Louisville-based companies. And I love what I did. And the company came upon a very challenging time. And it was an opportunity for us to step up, right? So we created our first D&I committee. I became actually the chair of the committee. And the team members at the company had an opportunity to come together, to talk, to share about things we actually never talked about in the workplace. It would just, to that point, wasn't something that we did. And we talked about our differences and began to share and celebrate those from Black History Month to Women's International Month, Pride Month. A lot of great things happened and a lot of momentum began to build. And then we came upon, the second part of the crisis for the company. And that was a time that I stepped into the diversity role. It was brand new. And so the opportunity to build it from scratch was exciting, but it was terrifying. If I'm honest, it was a terrifying experience, but I'm really thankful for the network I had built at that point. Along that journey, I had the opportunity to step back or reach back to companies I'd worked for in my past, including Humana and Brown-Forman, and their chief diversity officers were so helpful, right? So Again, that speaks to kind of having a good network, a strong network that you can reach out to. They were extremely helpful and collaborative around helping us establish some best practices. And they encouraged me that, you can do this, right? If this opportunity comes, the answer is yes. But, like you said, it was a very challenging time because I was hearing all kinds of comments from friends and family about why would you want to work for this company, right? Why can't you get a job somewhere else? And, I could. But for me, it was this moment, and at the same time, my mom had just passed at that point. But my mom was a tough lady, and she would have told me to hang in there, right? That I can do this. And what's the alternative, right? That you fail? Okay. What does that mean? It means you get another job, right? It's not the end of the world. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna speak up for people who had a lot of feelings about what was going on at the company, but didn't feel like they were in a position to say something. And then something else, I'm a quote person. I love quotes. One that really helped kind of fuel my path was, if you're going to rebel, it is better to rebel from inside the system than from outside the system. And for me, that meant staying, right, and pushing through. And I knew the company, was worth saving. I knew it was really important for us to have a focus on the 120,000 team members that work for the brand. That was very important. And so if I can help kind of shine light on that, as well as the franchisees of the organization, that was something I wanted to do. So I stayed, as I say, and the folks on my team would say, we fought the good fight. And so happy to have been a part of an incredible turnaround story for the organization.
Thank you so much. So what role does religious faith have in your life?
A tremendous role. I grew up in the Church of Christ. Actually went to the Westport Road Church of Christ most of my life. And it was always something that was really important to my family and I, and something my parents instilled in myself and my sisters. But for me, a lot of times when you're kind of going through these dark places in life and challenges and struggles, it gives me a kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, right? That there's something greater than myself, right? And that I can focus on that in these hard times. I know that God is not going to forsake me. Sometimes I actually tell myself when I'm going through really challenging times, Lord, what are you trying to teach me? Right? I hope I learn quickly, right? Because this is painful or uncomfortable situations to be in, but they're tremendous learning opportunities. Even in my career, the last 3 years of my career so have been some of the most challenging I've ever faced in my career and in my professional life. But my faith kept me in there. It pushed me through. It allowed me to focus on, the end of the path, right? And stay hopeful and stay optimistic, because I knew God would bring me through, and He did. And He did, but not without learning some tough lessons along the way. And so I think sometimes it helps to shape your perspective when you're going through something really difficult. And then I'll actually also to celebrate, when times are good.
Thank you. What do you wish you could tell your 15-year-old self?
So I would tell my 15-year-old self, hang in there. Nothing lasts always. I know often in these years of school, and as you go through the rest of high school, the worst thing can feel like the end of the world, right? And it just feels like, oh my goodness, my life is over. Something awful has happened. But I think it's so important to remember this is a brief moment. It's not going to last always. It's not going to shape who you are for the rest of your life and the rest of your future. So I think keeping that in mind is incredibly important. And to seek guidance from people around you. I know your mom or your dad you don't think is cool, right? And you don't want to seek their perspective. But know that my mom used to always tell me there's nothing new under the sun. And so while, sometimes I struggle with, oh, mom, does she understand, right? She did, and to seek that guidance and mentorship, I think is really important, definitely in those years of your life. So looking around you, who can you talk to? Who can you lean on? Who can you seek guidance? I always suggest, though, consider the source, right? So you want to make sure it's someone that's kind of on the path that you're trying to get on, someone you admire and look up to. I would highly recommend.
So you said before that you want to be a voice for the voiceless. So can you tell us what you mean by that and give us some examples from your own life?
Absolutely. So, as I said, kind of in my career path, that's definitely where I found my passion, and I continue to today. So, I've accepted a new role at Beam Suntory, who owns some incredible brands like Jim Beam, Maker's Mark, Cavassier, et cetera. And it's a really fun company, but they're on their D&I journey as well. The people of the organization actually have done tremendous work over the last 2 years in their employee resource groups, standing up D&I, fighting for D&I, pushing for equity within the employee base. And that's really important. And I think Beam has done a good job of listening to their people, right? And hearing what's going on and how do we get better, right? And I think for all of us, 2020 was definitely a time period that many of us, for in some cases, opened our eyes for the first time, right? And expressed empathy for the first time that, wow, all of this is going on. Right. And so a lot of times you hear the conversations around privilege, right? And what do we do with that? I like to think of privilege, it's a currency. And I think, how do you spend it, right? How do you spend it on others? All of us have privilege in different aspects of our life, whether it's, how you grew up. Did you come from, a family that, was able to support and provide for you, where others don't have that luxury? And how do you spend that forward? If you've got a two-parent household, that can be considered privilege, right? Because you have both parents in the house and others don't have that. So, I always ask myself, what can I do for someone else around me? How do I take the privilege that maybe I've experienced in my life and pay that forward and spend it on someone else? So I think that's definitely ways we can, stand up for one another and be a voice for each other. But all of that starts with building relationships, authentic relationships, getting to know each other, understanding what's the challenges in someone else's life and how can you help them.
That is fantastic. And I love how you where you started is kind of where you ended, all about relationships, right? It's all about making those connections. So really, being courageous doesn't mean having all the answers and being able to put out all the fires. It's more a measure of reaching out to others and being open to what those connections can do for us.
Absolutely.
So,
one other thing I would add,
please.
when you said, being courageous doesn't mean having all the answers. It absolutely doesn't. One thing my mom would always tell me, it's not about having the answers, it's about knowing where to find them. Right. And so sometimes I think fear keeps us from being courageous, right? What if I mess up? What if I don't know? Or I don't know, right? How do I do this? And for me, throughout my career, that definitely was a challenge. But, I had faith in myself. I believe God, had a path for me, right? And I was on it and that he would provide kind of the tools along the way. And he did, whether it was, again, through relationships and people that I knew and asked for help. I think that's another space in being courageous is sometimes asking for help when you need it. There is nothing wrong with that, right? Getting more information, right, along the journey. And I think another big component to remind yourselves is, and I use this kind of as a pillar of my life as well, is affirming others along the way, right? We didn't get here by ourselves. I didn't get in the role by myself or through my career by myself, right? There were so many people that I refer to as my village that, had they not been there, I don't know that I would have, been as successful as I was. And so I remind myself of that often. And that's, again, that place of privilege that I talk about, right? How do I spend that forward? How do I pay that forward? So many people were mentors to me, right? And how do I, do that in return? And even on the topic of mentorship, I actually don't always love the phrase of mentee mentor because sometimes that can imply, or especially reverse mentorship can imply that that's, someone has to be beneath you or above you, right? To have that relationship. I am mentored from a variety of people, older than me, younger than me, further ahead in their career, new in their career, right? There's always something to learn. And particularly in the D&I space, when you think about generational diversity, if you're going to understand, right, all the generations and what happens with Gen Z versus, baby boomers, right? You're going to have, perspectives from all of those areas. And so I think that's really, important to also remember.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Today, we know Ms. Russell is a very busy executive. In fact, she is on the docket to speak to another group momentarily. So I just want to take the time to thank you so much for carving out some time for us, for kind of sharing with us your vision of courage and character. And at Assumption, we just want to encourage you to keep up your good work as we will try to help our students do the same. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Aaron and Lily, I want to thank you both as well. You were fantastic. Loved being with you. Yay. Yeah. Applause from Miss Russell. That's great. So everyone we'll have a little bit more time on our first Goose Chase mission, which you will do starting at 9:45 in your homeroom team. And please note, for Goose Chase today, as well as other things this week, there are tons of family point opportunities. The family that is in last place right now, if you really devote yourself, you could end up in first place by Saturday. Okay, so let's get in there. Let's have some fun. Let's be courageous women of faith and integrity. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.